But we also can send it out where it looks like something that people in 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24 will actually read. So I took a little liberties on this. That's a long-winded answer, Jenny, to is it a local company? But it couldn't have worked out better. And I know prior to you being on the board, there was a lot of workshops and things like that in 20 leading up to October, and then the first contract in 21. And Patty, I think you and John were on the board at that time. And I was just saying to Bruce and his printer, Harry Levenstein, the other day, how far we've come. That really we had to do 2 or 3 workshops at the end of 2020 and really convince the community and the board of why we should get into this contract for 2021, because this was new, and like anything else, change is difficult. And I said to them, look at how far we've come, that now we've done 17 editions, 1 in October of 20 and 4 straight in 21, 22, 23, and 24. It is a known commodity now. And one of the things I'm proud of, and I think, Bridget, I'm speaking over what you said, is that we're not resting on our laurels. You have to constantly be changing and reading the community as far as what they want to see. And I feel very good about the team that we've put together, that we do that. And all you got to do is look at the screen that's up there right now, and I'll get off my soapbox. We've done it in a fiscal responsible way. And I've said this many times from this dais. I could make the argument that the most important job of a town council person is the fiscal responsibility to the taxpayers. So in 2019, there was $40-some-odd thousand spent on 3 town times. In 2025, there's going to be 4 Webster Todays, and we're a few $1,000s more after 5 years. Paul, you're the finance director. How we doing?
Makes sense. It's working out.
All right.
Better
I'll
product,
shut up.
Basically the same cost.
Local company.
Well, it's nice to hear.
Yep.
You know, because we are actually, we're using, the taxpayer money to give them the education and to communicate and, to be in touch with our community. And I'm glad that, Bruce, I saw your magazine, and everybody praised about it. And, a lot of my friends advertise on your things too, on your magazine. And that's how it's like balanced out. So the cost would be lower for us to pay you. And there's, information in there. I'm glad that it's local use, and, you are local. And that's important to me.
Agreed, and that was one of the biggest selling points. And like I said, Jenny, it somewhat, it did. It was prior to you being on the board in 22. This battle, if you want to call it, of proving to the board and the community this is worth us venturing into, occurred in late 2020, when Patty and John, I'm sure I'm bringing back memories, I'm sure you remember it. So, anything else on this? We do have a resolution at the 7:30 board meeting to, I think, authorize the supervisor to sign the 2025 contract. And a bit of leap of faith on the part of Bruce and his production team and whatever, because I would say that we are probably 90% done with the development of the January 2025 Webster Today. And I appreciate, Bruce, that, you and Harry and the crew, Scott, and, we have a relationship that we built up over the last 5 years on this. That's a leap of faith on your part, because this board could say, no, we're not doing a contract in 2025 with you. And you just basically did 25% of the year in the January 2025 edition. So thank you. Thank you. All right. Hey, we're on time, 6:45. Our next item up tonight is an update on EMS. Russ Ziskin is going to take the podium. Russ, for people who watch these and attend these board meetings and workshops, you probably have heard by now, because I think, Russ, this is your third or fourth time up there this year. Russ co-chairs a EMS committee with Councilman John Cahill. John Cahill is the board liaison to EMS in Webster. And Russ, I'm getting, there's a broken record on this one, Russ, but Russ, you've lived here, what, 15 years? Entrepreneur, high-tech industries, but the man's been in EMS, in the EMS industry for 30-plus years, and is the president, CEO, I think, of North Onondaga Volunteer Ambulance out of Clay, New York, about 80 miles from here. And that's because when he moved here 15 years ago from Clay, New York, they were like, we can't get anybody better than you to run it. Well, you still run it even from 80 miles away. Is that the story?
Yep,
All right.
that is the story.
All right. So we're very lucky in Webster to have somebody with that kind of, you want to talk about a subject matter expert that is teamed up with John Cahill as our liaison to really navigate us through this process as we try to figure out what to do long-term with EMS. So Russ, I'll hand it to you.
All right. Well, let's recap what we've done so far, right? We had a formal RFP that we put together, a request for proposal. We sent out to several agencies back in November, and they had to respond, let's see, responded by November 18th deadline. Was that right? Yeah, they had to respond by November 18th. We're already in December. Only 2 agencies responded to the RFP and expressed interest, which was Penfield, which is currently doing the short-term contract, and Monroe Ambulance.
Excuse me, Russ. Russ, could you speak into the microphone a little bit more? I'm not sure that people in
I've
the
got some in
audience.
the way.
No. Talk a little louder.
Yeah.
I'm worried that people at home can't hear you.
Sure. So once we got the RFP responses, we reviewed those responses and formed a recommendation. And then here we are tonight to report to the town what our findings and our recommendations are. What we did is we put together sort of a rubric, if you remember from, your kids' days going to school, they had to answer things, or, figure out how they score things by rubric, or 14 key points that we considered, which they were on the next slide there, so I don't know if I need to read them out because they're posted online, they're right there on the slides, but, so these are the metrics that we judged each of the RFPs by. And for the most part, the 2 ambulances are both very qualified to do what they do and what they proposed to do and what we needed them to do. But there were two points that were sort of the tipping points that leaned in favor of one agency, and that would have been, and that's Penfield. So that is our final recommendation, is that you accept the Penfield RFP, which really just is an acceptance for you all to negotiate a contract with them. Doesn't award anything. But those 2 points were, the cost for subsidy was Penfield's was significantly less of a request for subsidy. And so that certainly has a big weight when there's only 2 points, that was one of them, if all other things are equal. And the other more minor point that was a differentiator was that Penfield has contracts and a formal method for staging their ambulances, right? They have agreements in place right now, and while Monroe certainly committed to being able to do that, and I'm sure they would have been able to, but they didn't have it in place. So that was more of a minor point. It was, the subsidy was significantly different. And so everything else being equal, that winds up being our formal recommendation, is that you accept that proposal and go forward and negotiate a contract with Penfield.
Russ, just once again, I just want to thank you for all the work and the amount of hours and dedication that you've put into This process and the process as a whole for the last 1+ years.
Yeah, no,
I greatly appreciate it.
no problem. Any questions?
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions. I understand the way things were scored, and Penfield has been serving the town with the short-term contract this year and is doing a great job. The metrics, when they last presented to us, were outstanding, and I had to use the service once for my father,
Oh,
Well,
so
well, to be fair to the process, I mean, that wasn't something that we took into account, right? There was a request for proposal, and we looked at the responses, right? Because if we were just gonna say, hey, they've been serving us so well, there would have really been no need for a process if we weren't serious about looking at it. And quite frankly, I think, it was a hard decision, because out of the other 12 points, everything was very equal. So I think we actually, as much as emotionally we think of, what they've done for us, but I think the committee, especially most of the committee, other than John and I, don't live in Webster.
Right.
We're emotionally detached from that particular piece. So I feel good that we were pretty fair in our evaluation.
and it was, that was an all-star committee.
Yes, it was.
It really, you had operational EMS people from Central
Finance
to New
people.
York. You had Paul Adams, our finance chair, who I'd put him up against anybody on that end, and he's been dealing with billing issues and things because of us being a municipal ambulance for several years now. One of the billing companies, the owner of it, he was on this committee.
Yep.
And it's funny because I couldn't understand why Penfield's subsidy quote in their RFP was so much lower than Monroe's, and he explained it as the out-of-network and all that stuff that I don't think any layman would have understood that.
Yeah.
So having somebody that, like that on the committee, and then you had a couple of chiefs from Monroe County.
And and again, with like Sheehan from the billing company, he didn't have a dog in this fight.
No.
Right.
So, again, it was, we tried to be, really detached from what was going on the last year or so and be fair to the process.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty comfortable. Wish we could have, had everybody play in the Webster sandbox, but
Well,
it
not
is.
to, it's funny, what I said at our last workshop presentation, we've come a long way on the Webster today, in the 5 years from when we first proposed doing that periodical. Just in the last year, I thought to myself today that we were in this boardroom almost a year to the day, a year ago, and there was a proposal, a resolution on the agenda, to have an emergency funding to our, at that time, our EMS agency.
Yeah.
The town board decided not to do that emergency funding. And then what has happened the last year since then is pretty amazing. It really is. And I think we're on the cusp of, we have a resolution on the regular board meeting agenda tonight that if the board says, hey, that's the recommendation of the committee, that John Cahill, one of our board members, was on. If the board does that resolution, basically, we are starting the negotiation process on the long-term contract with Penfield Volunteer Ambulance, which I think is pretty impressive. And, it's funny, the short-term deal, which I agree, your committee did not really look at that, which I thought was really impressive. That ended up being $128,000 in 2024. And when the town board was doing our town budget for '25, and we're like, we don't know what we're going to have for EMS, we settled on a number of $100,000 for EMS for the 2025 budget. But we knew, Paul, we talked about it, like, that's the budget, but we'll see what ends up happening with what direction we go. I don't know how coincidental it is, but the RFP for Penfield's subsidy from the town taxpayers, from our general fund, for 2025 is $100,000.
Well, I mean, EMS is going to remain a tumultuous place and business, so unfortunately, it's going to take up time. It's going to continue to take
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
January 1st, as some of you know, the direct bill pay will be enforced, and so hopefully that will have a positive impact on the cost of EMS to the town. Previously, the insurance companies would send checks to the patients. You've heard me all say this. My organization, that's about, $250,000 a year of checks that people don't turn into us. So on January 1st, the theory is those checks are coming to us.
Yeah.
So that should help offset costs. So, I don't think Penfield had quite that, bad a payer or receipt problem, but hopefully they'll benefit from it, and that'll
Sure.
benefit the town as well. But I mean, there's a lot of other things going on in EMS that we'll see. The word on the street is the federal grants that are given out every year, 98% go to fire departments and fire service things, that they are going to have some significant consideration for EMS this year. I don't know what that means. If we go from
Right.
2% to 4%, I guess that's significant, but,
Right.
so, it'll be interesting to see.
Anything else for Russ or John, since he was the co-chair of that committee, so.
No,
Thank
I
you so
just-
much.
Thanks, Russ.
Yeah.
Thank you, Russ.
All right, well, that concludes the town board workshop for December 5th, 2024. Looks like we're going to have about a half an hour break here, and then we'll be back with the regular town board meeting for December 5th, 2024 at 7:30 PM. So, thank you.